It was a humid Tuesday afternoon when Mark, age 54, stopped mid-sentence while loading groceries into his car. He put a hand to his back, and a sharp wave of pain folded his shoulders inward, like someone had tightened a vise around his right flank. His wife Sarah called an ambulance because the pain would not ease, and nausea rolled through him with cold sweat. In the emergency room, the lights were harsh, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic, and a monitor beeped steadily in the background as nurses moved with brisk, practiced steps. I am Dr. Alex Reynolds, urologist in Chicago, and I was on call that day when Mark arrived. A CT scan showed a ureteral stone lodged painfully low down, and while the stone itself needed resolution, the deeper question was why a man who claimed to drink water and eat reasonably ended up with a kidney crisis. In this video, I will walk you through the top 10 foods and drinks that quietly damage kidneys, explain the physiology in plain terms, and give simple alternatives you can adopt this week. Stay with me until the middle, because item 7 is one of the sneakiest offenders people consume every day without suspecting the risk. Now let us start with the first food group that shows up on most problematic plates. The scene at the hospital that afternoon felt urgent and real. The fluorescent lights hummed, the antiseptic scent hung in the air, the vinyl of the stretcher squeaked when Mark shifted, and his voice came out thin and strained. Nurse Maria spoke softly to calm him while I reviewed the scans. I said, "Your stone is likely linked to diet and hydration patterns, not just bad luck." Maria asked how quickly we should act, and I explained options while Jason, Mark's son, wiped his palms on his jeans with a dry sound. Those sensory details mattered because they grounded the clinical questions in a human moment and reminded us that prevention is practical. Before we go into the list, I will tell you a bit about Mark's background so you understand how habits evolved and why small choices add up. Mark grew up in a household where quick meals and salty snacks were the norm. He worked long shifts as a delivery supervisor and learned to rely on convenience foods and energy drinks to keep going. Weekends meant barbecues and beer with friends, and lunches were often sandwiches from the corner shop with processed meats. Over the years, he developed high blood pressure and was diagnosed with prediabetes. Those conditions silently stress the kidneys by changing blood flow and promoting inflammation. When the stone formed, it was the result of years of modest poor choices accumulating rather than a single moment of excess. Connecting this backstory to the current crisis shows how typical behaviors, not necessarily extreme ones, can increase risk for kidney stones and progressive kidney damage. The first group of items I want to talk about are the high sodium and processed meat sources that dominate many plates. The first is cured deli meats and sausages. Imagine the smell of a warm sandwich with fatty salami and a tang of pickle juice. The salt hits your tongue, the texture is chewy, and the grease leaves a faint film on your fingers. These foods are loaded with sodium and phosphate additives that increase calcium excretion in urine and promote stone formation over time. The mechanism is simple to understand. In one sentence, sodium increases fluid loss and alters the balance of minerals that form crystals. Instead of salami, try grilled chicken breast with fresh lemon and herbs for a similar mouthfeel without the excess sodium. The second item is canned soups and ready-made broths. Open a can and you get a metallic scent, steam, and a comforting savory aroma. But you also get a concentrated dose of salt and preservatives. High sodium intake raises blood pressure, which in turn increases stress on the glomeruli, the tiny filters in the kidney. Swap to homemade vegetable broth with low salt added, or use unsalted stock and finish with a pinch of sea salt at the table. The third common offender is potato chips and packaged snacks. The crunch under your teeth, the oily aftertaste, the bag's greasy whisper all give immediate pleasure while delivering excess sodium and unhealthy fats. Those fats promote inflammation, and the sodium drives water retention and blood pressure spikes. For crunch, try air-popped popcorn tossed with a little olive oil and rosemary, or baked vegetable chips with controlled salt. Now let us move to the next set of culprits that often hide in beverages and sweets. The fourth item is regular sugary sodas and sweetened energy drinks. You can picture the cold bottle sweating in your hand, the fizz hitting your tongue, the bright citrus aroma.
These drinks pack fructose and phosphate additives that increase urinary excretion of calcium and uric acid, both of which encourage stone formation. Studies show that frequent soda consumption is associated with higher stone risk and worsened metabolic health. Replace them with sparkling water with a splash of citrus or herbal iced tea lightly sweetened with a small amount of honey. The fifth item is processed cheeses and cheese spreads. They melt and stretch, they smell savory, they coat the palate with fat and salt. Many processed cheeses contain phosphate binding agents and high sodium that disturb mineral balance. Use small amounts of natural cheeses or blends and pair with fresh fruit to moderate intake. The sixth item is excessive animal protein, especially red meat and organ meats. Think of a sizzling plate with charred edges and a smoky aroma. High-protein diets increase acid load and reduce citrate levels in urine, which normally help prevent stones. If you like meaty textures, choose moderated portions, add plant-based proteins like beans and lentils, and include leafy greens to offset acid load. At this
Pause for a moment. If any of these sound familiar to your daily routine, I want you to comment below. Tell me which of these items you eat most often. Type soda, chips, deli meat, or another word so others can see patterns and we can build a community that learns from each other. Many patients like Linda and Paul have written in sharing how simple swaps made a big difference, and your comment could help someone else. Now back to the list. The seventh item is a deceptively common one: calories from ultra-processed snacks and ready-to-eat bakery items. Imagine warm pastry, buttery layers, powdered sugar dusting your lips, the soft give under your teeth, and the sweet smell in the air. These foods are high in refined carbohydrates and often contain phosphates and preservatives that increase the kidney's workload. Consistent high intake promotes metabolic syndrome and slowly raises the risk of reduced kidney function. Swap pastries for whole grain toast with nut butter, or baked oats with fruit for a similar texture and sweetness without the additives. The eighth item are instant noodles and packaged meal kits. Boiling water releases a savory steam with strong powdered seasoning smells and a soft texture that is comforting and fast. Those seasoning packets are a concentrated source of sodium and phosphate, and the noodles often come with refined carbs that promote insulin resistance. Choose whole grain pasta or quick barley bowls with fresh vegetables and a light homemade sauce instead. The ninth issue is high oxalate snacks like certain nuts in large volumes and spinach-heavy smoothies. Picture a blender whirring, a deep green swirl that smells earthy, and the granular crunch of almonds sprinkled on top. Oxalate binds calcium in the urine to form stones in susceptible people. That does not mean avoid all greens. Moderate portions and pairing with calcium-containing foods like yogurt can reduce absorption of oxalate in the gut. I need to pause here and walk you through a tense moment from Mark's case because it highlights how diet translates into acute events. He arrived groaning on the stretcher, and we performed imaging immediately. The room smelled of alcohol swabs and clean linen. The screen glowed, and the scan revealed a 6-millimeter stone stuck low in the ureter with mild hydronephrosis. Mark looked pale, and he said, "I can't believe this is happening." I said, "We can try medical management first," and he asked what that meant. Nurse Maria handed him a glass of room temperature water that felt cool on his lips. The discussion moved quickly. I said we could give pain control, attempt medical expulsion with medications, and rehydrate, but if pain or infection worsened, we would place a stent or perform ureteroscopy. Jason gripped his father's shoulder and asked, "Is surgery risky?" I explained the risks in plain terms, and he nodded slowly. That tense hour held the weight of years of dietary choices manifesting. As an immediate medical decision, it is a reminder that what seems harmless can escalate to intervention if not addressed. The 10th and final item is one I consider a priority because it is widespread and cumulative processed condiments and ready-made sauces. Think of a bottle on the table with a thick pour, a tangy smell, a slick feel on your fingers. Ketchup, barbecue sauce, and many salad dressings contain sugar, salt, and phosphate stabilizers.
These concentrate hidden sodium and additives across meals. The alternative is to prepare simple vinaigrettes with olive oil, vinegar, mustard, and herbs, or keep a jar of plain Greek yogurt spiced with lemon and dill as a dipping sauce. To make this practical, here is a checklist you can apply today. Drink at least 8 glasses of water a day spread throughout the day. Favor fresh whole foods over packaged options. Choose raw or minimally processed snacks. Swap sugary drinks for flavored sparkling water. Reduce portion sizes of red meat. Add plant-based proteins and include calcium with high oxalate meals to lower absorption. These steps lower sodium, reduce acid load, and decrease mineral imbalances that lead to stones and progressive kidney stress. We have now covered the 10 items, and each one has an everyday alternative that does not require drastic culinary skills. Let me name a few people who have been part of this story so you see how community matters. Nurse Maria, who comforted Mark. Jason, his son, who stayed bedside. Linda, a teacher who changed her soda habit. Paul, a construction worker who learned portion control. Dr. Patel, a dietitian who suggested recipes. And Anna, a neighbor who joined a walking group. Each person made practical changes that collectively reduced risk. Remember that occasional indulgence is not the enemy, but routine patterns are. If you have high blood pressure, diabetes, type 2, or a family history of kidney disease, you should be more cautious because those conditions amplify the impact of these foods on kidney function. Hydration remains central, and simple daily routines like carrying a water bottle, setting reminders, and choosing water-rich foods matter more than one-off dieting. Before I close, I want to share 2 more tense moments from the clinic that illustrate outcomes. In one case, a patient named Carlos developed a persistent urinary infection after delaying care because he hoped the pain would pass. The infection progressed and he required a stent placement under general anesthesia. He described the fear and the hospital smells and the antiseptic sting in his throat. In another example, Maria, a 48-year-old teacher, changed from daily processed dinners to simple soups and salads, and within months her albuminuria decreased and her blood pressure required less medication. Those stories show both the risk and the potential for recovery when habits change. To wrap up, here are 3 immediate actions you can take today. First, increase your water intake, spread out over the day, not just a single large
amount. Second, scan your pantry for the items I mentioned and choose one swap to implement this week. Third, schedule a checkup if you have symptoms of kidney pain, blood and urine, persistent swelling, or chronic high blood pressure. Your comment helps others, so tell me below which food you will cut back on and type the word you chose. If this content helped you, subscribe to the channel for more practical tips combining nutrition and kidney health. I post evidence-based advice and real patient stories to help you protect your kidneys without radical diets. If you feel severe pain or have fever or vomiting, seek emergency care right away. Protect your kidneys today so you can enjoy tomorrow.